Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to another episode of the Movie Crusaders. My name is Sean Wasserkrug, and today we're going to be reviewing the action film Nobody. Now, this movie came out the end of March last year in theaters, but obviously around me, my theaters are still closed, so I had to wait for the on-demand release, which happened this past Friday. I was actually pretty excited to see this film. I love Bob Odenkirk from Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, among many other shows and movies that Bob Odenkirk has been a part of. So I've always been a huge fan of him. So when I saw this trailer out, I mean, naturally, I thought the same thing that most people thought when they saw this movie, is that it's basically Bob Odenkirk's John Wick, which is not too far off from what the film actually is. But when you have a character like Bob Odenkirk, you don't think of badass action star. You think of something along the lines of Breaking Bad, where he's kind of the swarmy, wisecracking lawyer, or he's just kind of that wisecracking comedian or dramatic actor that's really good charisma and good talking, but not much of a hand-to-hand combat, gun shooting, knife fighting kind of character. So it definitely felt like something brand new for the realm of what Bob Odenkirk brings. So I had to see exactly where this film was going to go. Watched it on demand a couple nights ago, and going to the actual premise, I mean, it's not like it is like John Wick, but it's not like John Wick. Bob Odenkirk's character, Hutch Mansell, he's got a past that I'll hold off kind of really explaining what that is. We'll leave that for the movie. He's not like a hitman assassin like John Wick, but he's got a past that makes him very difficult for people to deal with. But he kind of, I guess, how John Wick had initially started in the film, fell in love with a woman and basically turned his back on his old ways and is trying to live a normal life. But when two burglars break into his house and he doesn't do anything to stop them, his teenage son and his friends around him basically start kind of talking down to him like he's a wimp, he should have done something, because obviously they don't know his past. Basically until it gets to a breaking point for Hutch, and he goes down a path of violence and not necessarily revenge, but basically going back to his old ways, does something he probably shouldn't have done, and it leads to a spiraling of crazy action sequences up to the levels of a John Wick or even a Mr. and Mrs. Smith type of film. Bob Odenkirk does a great job in this movie. He comes off believable as being like a family man, like being a dad, working a mundane job, mundane life, and it to becoming a basically a John Wick-esque badass. Now, I would say the first like I'd say action sequence, it's very well done, but you can tell you're starting to see the transformation of seeing Bob Odenkirk from how we see him and everything else, and transitioning into that kind of a badass kind of character. That first fight, it's sloppy. It's not, and I mean sloppy in a good way. Sloppy for the character, not sloppy the way it's shot. It's shot beautifully, but it's sloppy in terms of the character because he hasn't been doing it for 16 plus years, so he doesn't have his full reins behind him in this fight. But you're seeing the confidence and kind of the muscle memory come back to when we start to get to the next fight after that, become just a full-on killing machine. To the point where we get to the final set piece in the third act that is amazing. I don't know how many times watching this movie I basically went, oh, because it was such a great choreographed action sequences. The kills are memorable. They look fantastic in the film. It's a lot of fun to watch. I will say that the first 20 minutes, when we're going through like the mundane life of the way he is now, does get a little repetitive and a little tiring after the first 20 minutes. But as soon as it flips the switch and he starts to go down that path and that road of the character, the movie totally becomes a ton of fun to watch, enjoyable to watch, has great action sequences and just great fighting all the way throughout. Other notable cast members, and this to me was the big one, his dad is played by Christopher Lloyd, which obviously everyone knows Christopher Lloyd, from Back to the Future and all that stuff. I personally don't remember seeing Christopher Lloyd in anything in God, that was how long? I think the last movie I remember Christopher Lloyd in was looking it up here real quick. It's been so long. I mean, he's done a lot of TV. I'm not gonna spend too much time looking for it, but it's been at least like 5 to 7 years. I think it was A Million Ways to Die in the West, where he played Doc Brown in like a little cameo spot. But Christopher Lloyd, I have not seen enough. He also is a badass in this film. Also something that I don't think I've ever seen Christopher Lloyd do before, and he does it great. The RZA has a small part in this film. He's great in the small role he's in. The villain, he's fine. Like it's kind of like the first John Wick film. You're going to this movie to watch Keanu Reeves kick ass. You don't really care about the rest of the other cast. I mean, yeah, you got like John Leguizamo, and you got I'm blanking on the kid's name from Game of Thrones, but the main thing you're there is to watch John Wick or watch Keanu Reeves. With nobody, it's the same thing. You're there to watch Bob Odenkirk. The villains, the main bad guy, they're kind of to at least everyone in America, they're basically no-name villain, bad guy, Russian villain, bad guy. They're not gonna, blow you away with their performances or anything like that. There's a weird kind of sub story where the guy runs a club and he likes to sing on stage and stuff that really kind of goes nowhere. I think it's just to give the villain more layers, but it's just kind of this weird, thing they do like once or twice in the film. But like I said, the big standouts for me in the film obviously are Bob Odenkirk and Christopher Lloyd, especially towards the latter half of the film for Christopher Lloyd, and the RZA is pretty solid in it as well. But as you're watching the film, you are seeing more and more of the John Wick esque life, to the point where, no, I doubt this will ever happen. But if we were to ever get a spin-off collaboration between and John Wick, I mean, obviously it would have to make sense for the story, but it would be something that I think a lot of people would be open to and welcoming to, because by the end of this film, you believe Bob Odenkirk as this badass killing machine known as Hutch, just like we believe, Keanu Reeves as John Wick. And if they were to ever make a duo picture together, I think everyone would rejoice, as long as the story made sense for them to be there and not just throwing them together in a movie just to do it. But overall, Nobody is a fun, kick-ass action film led by the always great Bob Odenkirk in a role that we never would have ever would have thought of seeing him in. Yes, the first 20 minutes is kind of mundane and competitive, but once we hit the action sequences of the film, it does not look back. It hits the gas pedal going 60 in a second, and you are going to cringe in the best way possible and yell and applaud with all the great action sequences all the way throughout. So going to my recommendations, overall score, definitely, if you guys have not seen Nobody and it's at theaters for you, go see it in theaters. If you don't have a theater near you that's open right now, see it on demand. It's definitely worth the price of admission. I'm going to give my score for Nobody a 76%, which is a B score. Definitely worth checking out, especially if you're a fan of Bob Odenkirk. You will not be disappointed. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and if you guys did, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, don't forget to follow all the social media. Coming up next, every Friday, you got myself and Brian Michaels coming to you with 5 new movies that come out that following weekend in movie history on the Weekend Crusaders. So be on the lookout for that. Last week's episode was a great episode of some really, really big favorites of ours. And of course, coming up next Friday, we have one of the bigger releases of 2021 in Mortal Kombat. So be on the lookout for a big spoiler review from Brian Michaels and myself as we dive into the Mortal Kombat realm. Here's crossing our fingers that this new movie looks and is as amazing as the first trailer was. And until next time, in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.